What's up? What you doing? It's time for another episode of the No Tracers podcast. If you are an urban explorer or if you're into urban exploration, this is the podcast for you. Check it out. Welcome to No Tracers, the podcast where I take you on an adventure through the hidden gems and forgotten corners of the world. From abandoned buildings and tunnels to rooftop views and street art, join me as we uncover the secrets of the urban landscape. With interviews from experienced explorers, tips and tricks for navigating the urban terrain, and thrilling first-hand accounts of their explorations. Get ready to discover the world like never before. Come explore with us. But remember, leave no trace. So what's up, guys? Happy Friday. Hope you're gearing up for a weekend of exploring. It's time for another episode of the No Tracers podcast. And this week I am speaking with a lovely explorer from Chicago named Alisonnn. You can find her on Instagram and TikTok. Her username is Alisonnn with 3 N's and 07 behind that. I'll put a link down in the description for you guys. Her name is also in the title of this podcast. If you're new to the No Tracers podcast, do me a favor and leave a rating and feedback. Hit the subscribe button. It helps the podcast grow, helps us find more listeners that are awesome, just like you. So, let's do a little recap. Last week, we had a crazy trio on. If you guys missed that episode, go back and check it out. Exploring with Nomad, Urban X Alex, and Really Not Chase came on the podcast to share their crazy stories as a group, and I'm going to be having Exploring with Nomad and Really Not Chase on separately to share their stories. I already had Urban X Alex on the podcast, so if you want to check out his episode, just scroll back a ways and go find that. Before we get into this episode of the No Tracers podcast, I have to thank my new sponsor, Smoke Blackcraft. If you don't know who Blackcraft is, they are a clothing company that designs like more goth-styled clothing, but they just came out with their weed-friendly sector called Smoke Blackcraft. I don't smoke weed, but I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast probably do. So if you want to get your smoke on, they have extracts that they just came out with that we are promoting right now. So if you want to check that out, smokeblackcraft.com, use promo code just the letter K. There's a link down in the description with that promo code. You can get 15% off, I believe it is. And yeah, go check out some gear for your smoking needs, or you can pick out some extracts. They are working on some CBD gummies and things like that, which is more up my alley. I do vape CBD, and I do CBD gummies, tinctures, and like ointments and that kind of thing, muscle balms, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Smoke Blackcraft, go check it out, smokeblackcraft.com. Alisonnn, welcome to the No Tracers podcast. Please introduce yourself and how long you've been exploring to the No Tracers audience. Let's do this.
My name is Alisonnn. On Instagram, I am Alisonnn07, and I have been exploring since late 2015, 2016.
Okay, cool. So we kind of got into it around the same time. And which part of the country are you in?
So I'm from the Chicago suburbs, so in Illinois.
Very cool. I'll actually be in Chicago this week for a job. So
oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm like in and out real quick. So otherwise I would be like, let's go explore or do something. But
right.
Unfortunately, I'm literally like flying in Wednesday night, staying at a friend's house, and then my gig is Thursday morning, and then I go back to the airport. Like, it's so fast.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to make a trip back then, especially for exploring.
Absolutely. So what got you into exploring in the first place? What made you catch the bug for abandoned places?
Well, I have always loved photography. I started playing with cameras when I was a kid. I took a couple of photography classes in high school and just got bored one day and looked up like old abandoned cemeteries in our area. And there's a pretty well-known one, like especially in the paranormal world. It's called Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. So decided to go there and just photograph that, see if we saw anything spooky, and just started looking up more abandoned things in Illinois, and now we're here.
Nice. So was your first exploration then, was it one of the cemeteries or was it somewhere else?
My first ever exploration was when I was in high school, but it was kind of like the hangout spot. Okay. In my high school, it was like this abandoned water park that's right off the highway, and it had all the water slides and everything, and it was called like Graffiti Mountain, we called it.
Nice.
So that was when I was in high school, but my first actual explore would have been, I guess you consider it that cemetery.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So when you started exploring more, like did you go back to places? Like have you revisited places that you've explored before?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like one of the first spots that is actually vacant and abandoned, it was a old insane asylum in Mantino. I can say it because a lot of the buildings are gone and
Gotcha.
reused there. But it was Mantino, and that was like our first ever, like pretty, bigger explore for us when we first started.
Very cool. So, when did you start doing stuff on social media? Like, when did you pick up a camera? And, like, if so, like, what kind of camera did you pick up first?
So when I was a kid, my parents got me like this little point and shoot camera. I think it was like a Kodak one.
Nice.
Started playing around with that, and I started actually photographing like landscapes and a lot of nature stuff. Would go to the local forest preserves, and like we have the Morton Arboretum here, and just photographing a lot of nature. And then throughout the years, it just turned into more of an interest. In high school, I took photography classes, and it was for like developing your own film and everything. Photoshop classes in high school. But now it's turned into this obsession where I'm constantly going somewhere. But now my first camera that I got that was a digital one was a Canon. I think it was like the D3200.
Okay.
I can't even remember. And then I switched to Nikon for a little bit, and now I'm using a Sony.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm a part of the Sony gang as well. So, much love there. So what keeps you going back to these abandoned places? Like what drives you to do this? What is it about like the mentality of an urban explorer that like pulls you into these places?
Well, it's definitely the history that's really interesting on a lot of these places. I would say the adrenaline, the you're not supposed to be there kind of thing. Just seeing these places that once were and now in their later stages of decay, but they're still so beautiful. The architecture in some of these places are just incredible to see.
Yeah, I feel like the more I explore, the more I'm coming to like appreciate architecture more than I ever did before. Can you say the same?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I remember I went to Portugal. I've told this story many times on the podcast, but there's a abandoned restaurant on top of a hill that overlooks the entire city, and I would love to explore that place with like the architect that built it. Like I would love to take him there now and ask him like, what do you think of this place now that it's empty and full of graffiti and like kind of falling apart?
That
That's
would be
always been
so
so
cool.
fascinating to me to like maybe get in the mind of an architect, but unfortunately I don't even think the guy's alive anymore, so that unfortunately cannot happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've always wanted to like explore a building that somebody built that is now abandoned. I feel like it'd be a really cool like documentary or something like that. So for you, have you ever have you ever been injured exploring?
Not like any major injuries, thank
Okay.
God. Just, bruises, cutting my hand on a glass window or
Hmm.
tripping and falling accidentally, but no like major injuries, and
Okay.
I hope to never have one.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm glad you haven't been like too badly injured while you're exploring. We've heard some stories on this podcast that would make you like sick to your stomach.
I
But
know.
for you, what has been your most creative entrance into a building?
Let's see. There was this, I guess you can call it like a school nearby, and it was not like a totally like second story window, but it was high enough to where you couldn't get in like just by standing on something, even like a garbage can or like a milk crate.
Hmm.
So we found this like I don't like a 2x4 like board, and it was my husband, and then his name is Just Nick, and then uh, Chicago Jen and then her girlfriend. We explored with them a lot. And we found this like 2x4, and my husband like put it on his back and like held it while we like walked across it to get through the window. I think that was probably the like most creative entryway.
That's incredible. Have you ever gotten permission to explore a place?
I have actually. There was or it still is, I should say, a school in Iowa. The Apollo School, I'll say it because the owner is so nice. And if you want to go here, all you have to do is message or contact him and he'll give you permission to explore the whole thing.
Wow.
The Apollo School in Burlington, Iowa. And it has an incredible auditorium with like a red curtain still hanging and everything's all decayed. But I've gotten permission to explore there a handful of times, actually.
Wow, that's awesome. I think it's so interesting when those instances happen when we actually are allowed to be at these places. And for you, like getting to explore a place like that, like how do you feel when you're in a place where you're allowed to be there versus a place where you're completely trespassing? Like what does it do for your like, I guess like your mental levels?
Oh yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. There's like no concern that you're going to get caught or, constantly like checking a window or, finding like another way to get out of the building in case something happens. You really don't have any concerns like that. And you can kind of relax and slow down and really take your time instead of like rushing, and then messing up your shots or something.
Yeah, definitely. All too often I've, missed like that prime shot because I'm freaking out.
Yeah, exactly. Or I've missed like a whole main part of a building because the caretaker just like chased me out.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember exploring this like super well-known hospital in California. And one of my like top videos on YouTube is this place because it kind of gained a lot of notoriety kind of after I went and explored it with a friend of mine. And we were looking for like specific rooms in this place and we found a couple of them, but we were obviously looking for like the morgue in the hospital and like all these places. But as the day went on, the doors started getting locked behind us.
Oh my
like
God.
Somebody was going and like a security guard was like locking the doors.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So like we didn't get to see the morgue, but we got to see like this surgical classroom and like a bunch of stuff, which was awesome. But at the end of the day, we were really trying to get the morgue and very few people have actually been able to get it. But yeah, that like fear mentality of like, oh my God, we're going to get caught is like kind of always lingering, I feel.
Absolutely. I've learned now over the years exploring hospitals, the first thing that I look for is that morgue because I do not want to miss it.
Yeah, exactly. I still haven't shot one. I have not shot a single morgue and it kills me inside. I've tried.
They are the best.
I know. I've tried doing a funeral home in the South and we couldn't get into it. Like I've tried a couple of different places that have like a morgue style or, the autopsy table, things like that, but just haven't had the chance to do it yet. But anybody listening that wants to go explore and show me some morgues, that would be super cool. Have you ever stumbled upon like a hidden room or like a secret passage in an abandoned place?
No, I don't think so. There was this weird, I don't want to say too much to give it away, but this weird like tunnel that kind of connected to this like storage that was underground. That was kind of like secret and hidden. Like I've been to the same place for something else and I didn't know that was there. So I had to go back. But that's pretty much the closest thing I would say.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard there's a couple places that are like, that were used for during like the Prohibition era, like secret tunnels and stuff, especially in like Indianapolis. I've heard there's like this one abandoned place where underneath is a secret tunnel that takes you to a speakeasy that's like still and like that kind of stuff to me is so fascinating. What about your scariest exploration?
Okay, so I know a lot of people are like paranormal or not paranormal. Well, I have a paranormal story and a non-paranormal story.
Okay, perfect.
So I guess I'll start with the paranormal story first. In this area, there is I guess you can call it like an asylum, and it was for like children at one point, kind of like this huge property with dorms, and there were hydrotherapy tubs and all that kind of stuff. We were in the chapel area shooting it. Jen, who I was with, Chicago Jen, she was more towards like the altar area, and I was towards like the back of the chapel. So then behind me would have been a hallway that leads to the rest of the building. So we were there shooting, and I kept feeling like I was being watched, or like somebody was there, or I kept hearing things, but I always just think it's my mind playing tricks on me. And, you know, you're in an abandoned building, you're going to hear things, water dripping, you know, pipes creaking, whatever. Well, all of a sudden I heard like footsteps, them getting faster, something kind of like jingling, like maybe keys.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, Jen, like somebody's here. Like somebody's coming through this hallway right now. And we waited, like nobody came in. The footsteps stopped. We like looked through the hallway, through the whole building. Nobody was there, but it sounded so real and so close. And I've never experienced like anything like that in my life.
Wow.
So I truly do think that I heard something. It's just, there's no other logical reason for it. It was 100% someone like running up on us.
Oh, like the old caretaker. Oh, that's creepy.
Seriously. It was so scary. I was so scared.
Oh man. Okay. What's the other one?
So the non-paranormal story is actually a recent explorer. There was this hospital in the area. I can say the name now because it's actually getting demoed as we speak. It was the old St. Therese Hospital in Waukegan, Illinois. And this place was huge, and we had gone actually multiple trips to find everything because the place was so big and we had no idea where anything was. So this might have been like, I would say like the third trip there. We were still trying to look for the morgue. We could not find it. This hospital basement was flooded probably up to your like almost ankle with the most disgusting water I have ever seen. Pitch black in there, of course. There was no power in the basement. So we're packing up our day's explore because we couldn't find the morgue again. We were already there for like 4 hours. And all of a sudden, we're in the hallway and we see like lights flashing, reflecting off something in the hallway down from us. So we're like, oh shit, like cops are here, security, there's someone here. So we're like, we got to get to the staircase to get out of the building. You know, let's get off the property. As long as we're out, we're good. Mm-hmm. So, of course, the nearest staircase that we go to, like all the staircases went different ways. Some of them went up only. Some of them went up and down. Well, this one, of course, only went down. So now we were going into the basement. We went down there, no bags on our feet or anything, just stepping in that disgusting water. And it was winter, too, so the water was freezing cold. Went down there to kind of like wait them out. Went into a dark room, and all of a sudden we see flashlights shining, reflecting from like, they had these mirrors in each of the corners, probably so if you could like see a gurney like coming so you wouldn't like hit the other person. So we're seeing these guys' flashlights like reflecting off of these mirrors, and we're like, oh my God, this is so scary. We don't know who it is. We're just trying to be quiet at this point. We kind of like rationalize. We don't hear any like police chatter like on radios.
Right.
Nobody was calling out saying like, hey, we know you're in here, like make yourself known kind of thing. So we're like, okay, it's either other explorers or like somebody else, but we know it's not police or security. So we're waiting it out. It's like 20 minutes we're standing in this shit water, like in the pitch black. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. And we're just seeing these flashlights shine all over. It's like a rave down there. And these people, whoever they were like tapping on different like metals. And we're like, oh, they must be scrappers. Like you could hear them clearly tapping on different things. We're like, that's so weird. It's got to be scrappers. So we're trying to like wait it out to see if they go back upstairs. Well, they're not. All of a sudden we hear a dog bark.
Oh no.
My heart sank into my butt. I was so scared. I was like, we need to get out of here now. So finally, we're like, all right, we're going to turn on a flashlight. We're going to run through this water, get to the staircase, and get the hell out of this building. We would have just ran to begin with, but we couldn't because there was so much water. When you made the slightest movement, it makes so much noise. So we turn on our flashlight. We run out of here. This water splashing up everywhere. It's so disgusting. We didn't run into them. Thank God. We got out of the building, and they were definitely scrappers. They had like this old, like shitty pickup truck, like backed in right up to like an open door, and they were like loading shit into their trunk. But when I heard that dog, I was like, we need to go now. It was so scary because I didn't know what would happen. And why would they have a dog? I'm thinking maybe to like protect themselves.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So scary.
Ooh. Have you ever run into like other explorers, not like scrappers, but like actual like photographers or whatever?
Yeah, I have like once or twice. I would have expected to run into like way more people, but I really haven't over the years. Yeah, it's been like only once or twice.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same for me. Like I don't often run into people when I'm in places that are exploring. It's only been like a handful of times over the years, like some teenagers smoking pot or like, the standard kind of stuff, whatever. But one time I was in this hospital and we were up on the top floor and we looked out like basically where the window was supposed to be there was no window. So it was just like an opening out into like the abyss, basically. So we just like peeked outside and we see a cop like circling around probably like 2 blocks away. And we were like, oh shit, we should probably leave because he's obviously like patrolling this area. So we start heading down and then we hear like people talking and I'm like, oh shit, we gotta like be quiet. It might be the cops or security guard or whatever. And then we like go to make our exit and we see these 2 kids in like white button-up shirts with ties on. And I'm like, what the what? Like, what are they wearing? So obviously we like stopped and we looked over and we were like, hi, like, what are you doing? And they were like, oh, we're, oh my God, what are the kids that go door to door? Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what. Yeah. Okay, so they had just gotten out of like class and they were going to like their next whatever activity, and they like walked past the place and were like, we just wanted to like check it out, and they had fucking name tags on. I was like, you guys,
what the hell?
You can't have your names on. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But it was pretty funny. And they were like, oh, like, what do you do? So obviously I told them about the podcast. They probably listen to it now, but it was so random, like running into these kids that were just like, oh, we were going to our next class and we like walked past this place and wanted to check it out. Like, how random.
That's so funny. That's so funny for sure. Not scary, but oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. But it was scary for a second because we didn't know who it was until we like saw them and we were like, oh, these kids are harmless. But okay, so here's a new question that I wanted to add to the podcast. I thought it would be kind of fun to kind of suss out your answer. How long would you survive in a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, geez. Well, I used to play a lot of Fallout, so
cool.
I don't know. I mean, I would hope like a couple months. Like I even have like, I know this is probably crazy to some people, but like a little backpack that's like a bug out bag.
Yes.
Like you never know, that just has like, some medicines in it and bandages and like water, if you got to grab and go kind of thing.
Very cool.
But yeah, I like to be prepared. So, I would hopefully say a couple months. But that's so scary to think about that if that really came true.
I know, right? Well, I thought it would be an interesting question because like we already hang out in abandoned places so much where it's like, kind of spooky and like we kind of have these like survival skills that we pick up along the way. And like, so I thought it would be interesting to like throw that question into the podcast now. So it's a new fun one for everybody. Has anything ever made you want to stop exploring? Like any like incident that you've had that you were like, okay, I need to take a break for a second?
There's been a couple pretty close calls with, getting in a little bit of trouble. that I'm like, man, I should probably like slow down or not do such like risky stuff, or if I don't have a good feeling about it, like go with my gut at first.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been one or two instances, but didn't last very long.
So tell me your most risky exploration story.
I knew you were going to ask this. I had to think about this one too.
Yeah.
So in the city, there was this church. It was really nothing special. Like, I look back at it now and I'm like, why did I even risk and like do this for this church? It's really nothing great. It's super small. It was really hard to shoot. Like, the windows were always blown out in my photos. And so we decided to go here, and there was a caretaker, and I think the guy like lived in there. Oh. And like every time we'd scope it out or drive around, the guy was like, had a lawn chair, and he would sit on the corner. This church was on a corner on the block. So he'd sit in the lawn chair, I swear to God, like all day. And we finally like figured out like what kind of car this guy drives. And it was like, I think this like minivan thing. Well, like someone in the city, like an explorer, figured out like the combination on the lockbox.
Damn, okay.
And like got the key, and like we like scoped it out. We're like, all right, we're going to wait for this dude to leave and like go inside and shoot it while somebody like follows him in his car. So he got out and he left. He got in his car. One of the people we were with like was following him, and like we ran inside and like ran and gunned and shot this church, and while the other person was following him in the car, and then got out and put the key back, and that was it.
Wow, that's amazing. Holy shit. I've heard a couple people, I'm in like a Discord group with a bunch of explorers, and there's a couple people that have like keys, like master keys to a couple places. And that to me is like crazy. I'm like, how did you get this? Find a key, make a copy, before. That kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be so afraid to do that though.
Right?
If like says, do not copy. And they're like, what is this for? I'd be like,
My house.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Okay. So if you could bring an abandoned place back to life and restore it to its former glory, which place would it be, and what would you do with it?
I probably would bring back, I'm going to say the name of this one too, because if you Google it, it's literally one of the spots that come up when you Google it, but it's St. Stephen's Church that's here in Chicago. It's like this huge white church, and in the center of the ceiling, it's got this beautiful dome with like a little stained glass in the center. It's really a pretty church. It's probably one of my favorites here. But it's really heavily decayed. Like it looks like the floor is going to cave in like any season now. But I would restore that and bring it back as a church again, because it is just so breathtaking.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I've heard a couple explorers on this show that actually do restorations. So there's a couple guys in Detroit that like flip places and like turn them into, a bar or like whatever.
Awesome.
So it's definitely a thing that is possible. You just have to like basically get the place marked as like a historic landmark, and then there's like a whole process. But it's cool that there's people out there. There's another guy after the final curtain. He helps get old theaters on the historic landmark whatever page,
preservation or whatever.
The list. Yeah. So it's pretty cool that that's like an option for some of these places to like save them. There's a church in Detroit that I would love to save. We call it St. Curvy. It's very well known.
I just posted that place not too long ago.
Yeah. It's so very, very pretty. It's very pretty. But that floor is gonna cave in for sure.
Oh, for sure. I like stepped on it and I was like,
Like, you're like, this is squishy.
Yeah. Not doing that.
No, it's so sketch, but it's such a pretty place. Like I wish they would save that place before. But I mean, it's in, I'm not going to say where in Detroit, but it's in an area that like is kind of full of abandoned places if you kind of know where to look for like the right ones. But yeah, it's I wish they would save that place, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's probably just going to fall into its own, fall into itself basically. But what does your family think about you doing this?
Well, my parents always tell me, please don't get in trouble. Can't you find something else to shoot? Or, they worry about me getting in trouble, as do I worry about getting in trouble.
Sure.
But the obsession has taken over at this point.
Yeah.
But they support me 100%. They're always saying how proud of me they are and supporting me. And I had my first book come out, I think 2 years ago it's been now. So they bought a bunch of copies, had me sign them and gave them to all the family members and friends.
That's cool.
So they're very, very supportive.
That's awesome. Tell everybody what your book is called, where they can find it.
Yeah. So my first book is called Abandoned Chicago, Decay in the Windy City. Nice. And you can get it online at Amazon and online in Barnes & Noble and in stores at Barnes & Noble.
Very cool. Did you go through a publisher for that?
I did, yeah. I submitted a pitch. It was like a little bit before COVID really got heavy, and then like things kind of shut down and I didn't hear anything. And I was like, oh, maybe because of COVID, or maybe it's just not meant to be. Well, then once COVID kind of stopped a little bit, they accepted my pitch, and I published my first book.
Congratulations. That's huge. I love hearing other photographers that have published books. I think it's so cool to print out. I feel like a lot of people that are photographers forget that we should print out our work. We should have something tangible to like not only show other people, but to like have for ourselves. I think it's cool to do that. And for me, like I've got 2 photography books myself that I self-published, and it's been such a cool process to like put those together. And I also decorate my house with like giant prints of some of the places that I've explored, because like I said, like if I'm going to decorate my place, like it might as well be with my photography,
Absolutely. I do too. And I buy others' photography, and I have some of their prints hanging up, and it kind of keeps that picture of that location like alive, and it's unique. It's not 100 prints that, are sold at Target and, every family has it hanging on their wall. This is something unique, and, it means something a lot to people too.
Absolutely. What do you do when you're not exploring abandoned places?
Well, I work full time, and I work at a cemetery, actually.
What? Wait, what? Hold up. Everybody hold up. What?
Yep. So I am a administrative assistant at a cemetery. I absolutely love my job. I just started it, actually. I've only been there for a little bit over a year. But I've always wanted to get into the like afterlife realm. And it was so hard because you needed like previous work history. Well, nobody would hire me, so nobody would give me a chance, kind of thing. So finally got a job at a cemetery, and I love it.
I feel like you don't have to deal with a whole lot of people.
No, I worked previously in the veterinary world.
For like that's 9 such hard
years.
Work. Oh,
yeah. And it absolutely like just drained me mentally. And then after COVID, like it was so bad, and I needed to change. And this still has some customer service, but I do a lot of behind the scenes and, working with, vendors or whatever, or ordering product, or, submitting a headstone order and things like that.
Wow. That's quite fascinating. Like to think about that type of work, like working at a cemetery, and like that's always just been fascinating to me. That type of work and that field of work has been very interesting to me, because everybody's going to need it at some point.
Right. Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's a business that will never like end. Unfortunately, people are always going to die.
Yeah.
And it just is, I guess, rewarding because you're helping a family when they're grieving.
Sure.
I think working in the veterinary world all those years, you kind of get like, numb to things. I hate to say it.
For sure.
So, unfortunately, when people are grieving, I think I'm really good at guiding them and helping them and directing them, through this time of need.
Yeah, definitely. It's very special what you do. I think it's awesome and very admirable because, like we said, like everybody's going to need that at some point. And for you, like, do you have any goal places that you are itching to explore?
I do, of course. So my first one is actually a place that you've been to. It is that massive, lovely hospital.
Oh, yes.
With the, I don't want to say too much and give it away, but a lot of people I'm sure know it. It's just that really big hospital that you've been to. That's probably number one. I'd give my left arm to go there.
I've been to two very big hospitals, so I'm curious to know which one you're talking about.
It was the one that has like the little auditorium that is
okay,
90-degree angle looking down.
Yeah, that's the one where the security guard was locking the doors behind us.
Yes, that one I want to go to so badly.
It's so hard to get in now. There's like a cop that like is planted outside full 24 hours a day, and they've got security, and it's hard to get into now. But like, if you ever get the chance, and that's the thing, like so I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it now. So here we go. I got hit up by a TV show that shoots content around the paranormal. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to like name the show.
That's awesome.
But they want me to go with them to that place, and they're going through the process of like actually, because it's like an actual TV show that's on TV. They're going through like the proper channels to get permission to go into the place. And like, I've personally submitted to because there's the abandoned hospital, but part of it is still used as like storage and stuff. And they just rebuilt a new hospital kind of like adjacent to it. Okay. And there's a media department. And so like, I've tried to get in touch with the media department and been like, yo, I want to do a documentary about this place. And they just say no. Because I'm like, who am I? I'm like a YouTuber, But so yeah, this TV show is trying to go through the channels to like get permission to get into this place. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I get to go back there and be on a TV show.
That would be so awesome. That place is so sick.
Yeah, but like to go at night would be terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Any spot at night is like so terrifying.
It's so scary. It's so
I don't know why.
Oh my God. It's just an added element. Like it's already scary during the day, kind of, it's like spooky and like, you never know who's going to be around the corner. But like at night, like your senses are even more heightened. And then it's like, what the fuck are we doing in this place?
Oh my gosh.
It's wild. If you could live in an abandoned place that you've explored for an entire week with like no problems, say you have like a comfortable place to sleep, whatever, food, water, all that stuff, a bathroom, which place would it be?
I would say, and you're saying like this place would have power and like a bathroom, like
no power, but yes, like running water, we'll say that. So like you can comfortably go to the bathroom.
Well, I would say then, because I need some daylight or some kind of light, because that just would freak me out. I would say probably one of the mansions that are like in this area that I've explored. Just because they're kind of on the cleaner side and, different rooms and just large, and even the architecture in some of these that I've shot before are really incredible. Just the details on the ceiling. And like the crown molding and stuff. So I would say like one of the mansions around here that I've done.
Oh, I love a mansion. I don't usually do houses, but like if it's a mansion, I'll make an exception for that.
Yeah. I am not a fan of houses either because you just don't know.
You never know. Like somebody could be living there. Like if you're in Alabama, like there's a high likelihood that someone still lives in that fucking house.
Yep, absolutely. There could be garbage piled and weeds up to the windows, and somebody is living there.
Some crazy motherfuckers in there just drinking beer and smoking cigarettes, waiting for you to come in with a shotgun. Like, come on now. So what do you hope for the future of urban exploring?
I hope that people become less, how should I word this, careless with places. I feel like within the past year and a half, maybe even less, exploring has become like such a new like hobby or like fad for some people, especially like, I hate to say it, but like kids in high school, like doing their TikToks and shit. I mean, just so careless with places. Like I've seen videos just like scrolling through TikTok on my For You page of like some random kid whose bio says like, you know, class of 2025, like posting him like running across some like hospital roof, you know, in the middle of the day. Like, what are you doing? You know, just like stupid shit these people are doing. And it ruins it, honestly, for everybody and themselves, because like, say they want to go back there or whatever they want to show their friends, I guess it's going to ruin it for them because they're acting a fool in a place.
Yep.
You know, so it just makes it harder all over, especially here in Chicago. I mean, a spot could be open for a day, and then I swear to God, the next day it'll get closed. Like, it's so hard here.
Damn, yeah. It's a little bit easier where I live. I'm down in like the Nashville area, so it's like, you know, there's not a whole lot of activity here, which is cool. But it's still, you know, you still gotta like, I feel like people gotta have a little bit more respect for these places.
Just be a little smarter, you know, and not so careless with these places, and don't just go to a spot just for like clickbait so you can post some like cringy caption or title to get people to go onto your page. You know, it just sucks because these buildings like mean so much to some people. Like, you know, like you said, you've got messages from patients or like a teacher that used to work at a school or something. You know, these places mean a lot to these people. And if they like saw some of this stuff that goes on, it'd be so like heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And then the last question I have for you is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started exploring?
I would say, unfortunately, to not trust people as easily. I've gotten burned pretty good a couple times before, and you know, just because I've been too nice and trusting of somebody that I really didn't know. So now I kind of am more a little bit subdued and just, you know, really take things in before I really like not show my true self, but really open up about things, or, you know, even exploring with someone. I really don't explore with that many people. It's like a handful of people, if that. But I keep my circle like super close.
Yeah, I feel like you have to at this point. You know, it's a little hard to trust everybody out there, and you know, with the drama within the urban exploring community, like it makes it even more difficult, I feel.
It does. It just gets old really quickly, and it's like, I just want to like see things and like show others what I see. Is that so hard?
Exactly. I feel you. So thank you for coming on the show. If people want to follow your journey further, where can they go to find you online? Drop your social media.
I am mainly on Instagram, and it's Alisonnn with 3 N's. So ALISONNN07.
All right, guys, that was my episode with Alisonnn. If you want to check her out, Instagram is Alisonnn with 3 N's and then 07 behind that. Her links are down in the description. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to come on the No Tracers podcast, well, you know, all you got to do is shoot me a DM on Instagram at no.tracers. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you dug it, share it with a friend, share it with several friends, share it with your mom, share it with your grandma, share it with your dog, share it with everybody. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. And if you like this episode or the show in general, please leave a rating and feedback. It helps the podcast grow. And if you want to support me further, I have 2 photography books. I have prints, I have merchandise, all kinds of cool stuff. NoTracers.com. Go check some stuff out. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the No Tracers podcast. I'll talk with you next Friday for another one. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out, go explore something, and remember, leave no motherfucking trace.